Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Here we are, can you believe it? July's already on us. We're talking about the top baits for you to tie on when you go out there in July to hit the body of water wherever you're at. So we're gonna try to cover the gamut, give you some ideas what to tie on to make sure you got the right stuff and where to throw it. And you know, I'm gonna try to throw in a few ideas of mistakes I've made, like what you do wrong with each one of these baits. So let's get right off into it. Like in July, guys, fish are deep. I'm not gonna say they're all deep, you know, so like this video here, I've set up these baits for deep fishing. I got some videos coming out right after this all about shallow fishing in July. So there is a whole group of fish up there shallow, whole nother group of baits that you would use, and in particular it'd be all around that bluegill spawn. But you know, for me right now, I'm gonna talk about deep July fishing. My first bait I'm gonna pick up when I go out to any body of water and I start fishing deep around it is just a Dredger 25.5. This is a really unique bait in that it's still fairly small, yet it gets deep. You know, I can get this bait to 22, 23 feet on a really long cast, 12-pound test. That chartreuse blueback's probably my favorite. The citrus is a really good color, you know, if the water's kind of stained, you know, or I just need to show them something different. Another favorite color of mine is that lavender shad when things get really clear or the water gets calm, or just to show them something different. But a deep diving crankbait's a must-have tied on in July. You know, a lot of times in July, you know, even around here, you know, you'll start having some water move through the system, so current will set those fish up out off those offshore points, those offshore bars, and you know, that 25 just gets a little bit deeper. I think a lot of times fish slide out deeper, you know, whether it's pressure, cooler water, whatever it is, but I really like having that 25. You need to have it in your arsenal. All right, so the next bait. Football jig, guys. This is a must. That's that 3/4 ounce Berkeley football jig. Peanut butter and jelly is like my #1 favorite color when I go to tie one on. I've just got that paired with a peanut butter and jelly shape 108. Matches it really, really well. Throw this on 14-pound test, drag it around, you know, and not only do you want to drag it, there are times that you want to rip that thing up off the bottom, then let it fall, get those fish to react. But a football jig is something you have tied on. Now, one thing I like about the Berkeley one, they do have also a 1 ounce, and you don't find a lot of 1 ounce football jigs. And when we start talking about getting out there super deep, 22, 25, 30, a 1 ounce jig sure does help you get it down there quicker. So keep that in mind. Have some 1 ounces in your arsenal if you're on a body of water where those fish will slide out there deeper. Really, really key component. But what is one mistake I'll see people making when they're throwing a football jig? I think a lot of times it is after you've hooked that fish. You got to think about how much line you've got out, how much stretch could be in that fluorocarbon. Man, when I hook that fish and I get that bite, I am never going to stop reeling. Like, I want to put as much heat on that fish all the way till I get him to the boat. Once he gets to the boat and he makes that run, that's when I'll start backing it off. But I'm going to have my drag all the way tight. I'm going to put a lot of heat, because what happens is when they come up and jump, and if you bow to that fish or give him any slack at all, they can throw that thing really, really easily. So reel super hard with that. You know, as far as a crankbait, what is a mistake I see people make? It's just not taking all the energy you got and making as far a cast as you possibly can. And here's why. You know, it takes a long runway to get a bait from the top down to 22 feet. And then once you get it down there to that depth, you're going to already start coming back up. So do all you can to make as far a cast every time you throw it out there. It's just so important, because, you know, an extra 10 or 15 or 20 feet on your cast, that's an extra 10 feet when it's in the strike zone at the bottom. That's like exponentially greater chances of getting a bite throughout the day. So it's just such a key component to it, guys. Don't have too big a line. You know, 12-pound test really helps get that bait down there, and retie, guys. I don't see enough people retying. Say, well, I hadn't caught anything on it. You heat that fluorocarbon 2 feet up from that bait, you know, that far up there, you know, when you're going to cast it, and that's going to be your weak spot in your line. So retie and make as far a cast as you possibly can. All right, so the next bait. This is one you guys don't think of a lot. Man, I murder them on this thing around the house. It's a 1 ounce spinnerbait when you look at it right there. I throw this thing out there, I let it go to the bottom, man, and I just start slow winding that thing back there. You know, it's just a bait that catches them. It's something they don't see. It just really represents a shad really well. I love this color. It's E2 Magic. It's a transparent chartreuse and white. I go with the double willows because a tandem willow is going to give it more lift. It's going to be harder to keep on the bottom. So this is the compact version. It's got smaller blades. It's meant for getting out there deep. You're also going to notice the spinnerbait's got an extended hook shank. It's back. You don't have to have a trailer hook on it, but it's just a great bait. When you got that brush pile out there, you got some piece of cover down there, you can throw it out there and just wind it right across the top of it. Let it flutter down on this side of it. Phenomenal deep bait. I don't understand why more people hadn't grasped onto that. I don't ever hear people of throwing it, and it's just one I've had a lot of success with. So what's a mistake I think people make with this? I think it's really not throwing it in July. They don't think of spinnerbaits. Once springtime's over, a lot of people put your spinnerbait boxes up and they don't keep this one on the deck. This one's a must-have for me in July. Okay, we got 2 bonus baits. A lot of times this is a top 3 baits, but in July, you've got to have a spoon tied on, okay? That's just the standard, I'm gonna guess 4 3/4 inch spoon. Got a little feather on the back of it. You know, this is a bait you're gonna throw out there and you let it flutter back, you let it flutter to the bottom, then you just rip it up off the bottom, it flutters back down to the bottom. When you rip it back up, that's when that bite's gonna happen. So a lot of times I'll put a little bit bigger hook on it. I like to throw this on a pretty big rod, like a 7/6 heavy action rod, 17-pound test. I don't finesse them. When I get that fish to bite, I'm doing all I can to reel it as fast as I can and get it to the boat. I don't let him play around the boat. I don't do anything. Why? Man, when they have that thing, they've got all this leverage to throw it. So wind that fish in. What are some mistakes I see people make with this bait? I don't think they let it flutter on slack line. When you go to rip that thing up there, be sure you feed it line, because that, you rip it up and it's almost like that old flying lure. It will actually go backwards into those fish's face on slack line. So it's really important. You rip it up, you're gonna feed it that line. You don't wanna do it on tight line. You want that to be slack line. You wanna be watching that line as it goes in the water, and if it pops or stops too soon, reel down, set the hook. So be sure when you go to pause it, you're feeding it line, slack line, so it can go right back into that fish's face and make them eat it. Okay, the last bait, man, it's just a bait that you got to have tied on. Just a hair jig, man. These things catch a lot of fish. Just a bucktail hair jig, just awesome. Like, here's the deal with this bait right here. You throw that thing out there, a couple different ways to rig it. There's times if those fish are really up suspended, I'll really pop it up really hard and then just let it fall back down. Doesn't have to be like on super slack line, just on kind of tight line. A lot of times I'll throw it out there to the bottom and I'll just reel it, kind of fairly medium quick, and then kill it. Reel it fairly medium quick and then kill it. Those are the 2 retrieves that I use on it. What are mistakes that people make with it? Too big a line. This is a bait that I throw on 12-pound tests. Some people tell you it's got to be 10. The reason is just the resistance in the water. It helps keep that bait down in the water column. Light line helps keep that bait down. Don't go with 14, 17, all that stuff. You don't need it. 12-pound test is what I throw that thing on. Open hook, you don't have to have great big line. You're going to get a good hook set in it, guys. But that hair jig is a must this time of year. It just it's quiet, and I kind of go through, like, I'll start with this, I'll go to the football jig, I'll go to the spinnerbait, I'll go to the spoon, and then, I'll end it, with the hair jig, or I'll have the hair jig, then the spoon. A lot of times the spoon's going to be the final thing for me, just because you lose so many fish on it. Like, I don't want to lose any of those fish and mess that school up. So I kind of just go through that order when I pull up on a school of fish or, fishing offshore. That's how I do it. But man, there's some baits for you to have tied on in July. I hope it helps. I hope it helps you win your next derby, next tournament, wherever you're at. Hit that like button for me, guys. Be sure you're a subscriber, and good luck.